Growing up in suburban Chicago, I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. My name is Vanessa Mitchell, and from my earliest memories at our modest two-story home, I watched my parents shower my older brother Ethan with endless attention and opportunities while I learned to fade into the background. The inequality in how they treated us wasn't subtle, it was as stark as a newly appraised property report. I can still picture myself at age 12, sitting alone at our kitchen table struggling with algebra, while Mom and Dad eagerly drove Ethan to his latest basketball tournament or debate club. He was 3 years older, and that somehow entitled him to every advantage. The pattern was painfully predictable. Every time his teachers mentioned even a hint of potential, my parents Howard and Patricia jumped at the chance to nurture it, draining our family's modest teacher and nurse salaries on coaching sessions and equipment. Ethan's got such natural leadership abilities, Mom would proudly tell her hospital colleagues. He's going to be a successful businessman someday, just watch. I quickly learned to minimize my own needs. When I expressed interest in art history classes at 13, seeing how it connected to the antiques in my grandparents' store, Mom gave me that practiced apologetic smile. Maybe next semester, honey. Ethan's private coaching sessions are stretching the budget right now. The disparity reached new heights during Ethan's senior year of high school. I was 15, picking at my dinner while my parents could barely contain their excitement. We've been saving for years, Dad announced with pride, and we're sending Ethan to Preston College, one of the most prestigious business schools in the Midwest. Ethan's face lit up like a successfully flipped property. Seriously? That's incredible. And there's more, Mom added, practically glowing. You can stay in our investment property near campus. No rent, of course. We want you focused on becoming the next business mogul. I pushed my food around, mentally calculating college costs versus my meager savings, not that anyone noticed. They were transfixed by Ethan's animated descriptions of his future empire. That night, staring at my bedroom ceiling, I ran the numbers with the precision I'd later bring to property valuations. Between Preston's tuition and maintaining a free apartment for Ethan, my college fund would be as empty as an abandoned foreclosure. The realization hit like a lowball appraisal, but instead of despairing, I began strategizing. The next day, I visited Thompson's Antiques, my grandparents' store housed in a beautifully maintained Victorian building. My grandfather Walter, who'd spent decades honing his eye for value, listened intently as I outlined my situation. "Well, Vanessa," he said, studying me with the same careful attention he gave his most precious pieces, "I could simply write you a check for college." He paused, running his hand along an ornate mahogany desk. "But I think you'd benefit more from earning it yourself. How would you like to learn the art of valuation?" That was the turning point. While Ethan packed for his prestigious college adventure, I immersed myself in the world of antiques every afternoon. I learned to catalog inventory, assess condition, research provenance, and most importantly, determine true value, skills that would later prove invaluable in my career as a property appraiser. My grandmother Eleanor would bring me homemade cookies and share the fascinating histories behind each piece we sold. My parents' reaction to my initiative spoke volumes about their expectations. When I explained my job and college savings plan, they seemed relieved, almost grateful that their second child had solved her own problems without requiring their investment. 3 years at Thompson's Antiques taught me more than just the value of old treasures. Each afternoon spent assessing antique furniture and appraising vintage jewelry built my college fund and honed my eye for true worth. By graduation, I had enough saved to fund my education, and a newfound talent for valuation that would shape my future. My high school graduation was marked by a quiet dinner at home, a stark contrast to the elaborate celebrations they'd thrown for Ethan. But I took pride in my self-reliance. I enrolled in State University's business program with a focus on real estate economics, a practical choice that would maximize my investment. The tuition was manageable, and I even maintained a small emergency fund. Living at home and navigating public transit wasn't the college experience most dreamed of, but it aligned with my careful financial planning. Howard, Patricia, I ventured one evening, using my parents' first names as I often did in serious discussions. I've been looking into reliable used cars. It would significantly reduce my commute time to campus. Dad barely glanced up from his investment portfolio app. Not possible, Vanessa. Our finances are tight right now. The bus system is perfectly adequate, Mom added, scrolling through her photos of Ethan's college adventures. Many students use public transportation. I swallowed my response, recalling how they'd not only paid for Ethan's driving lessons but also financed his new BMW. Water under the bridge now. During my freshman year finals week, our typically quiet house transformed into Celebration Central. Ethan was graduating from Preston College. Mom and Dad orchestrated an extravagant party, inviting their entire social network. While arranging charcuterie boards in the kitchen, my assigned task, naturally, Ethan made his grand entrance with Olivia, his girlfriend from senior year. She wore designer labels that probably cost more than my semester's tuition. They floated into the room, the perfect power couple. Everyone, Ethan announced, commanding the room like the business leader he imagined himself to be. Olivia and I have amazing news. We're getting married. The house erupted in celebration. Mom dissolved into happy tears while Dad's proud backslapping nearly knocked Ethan over. There's more, Olivia added, her marketing major evident in her perfect pitch. We're moving to Connecticut after the wedding. My parents' real estate development firm needs fresh leadership, and they want us at the helm. Mom's tears intensified. My son, the future CEO. I always knew. Born for success, Dad declared, already envisioning the empire. I observed from my corner, arranging desserts. No one mentioned my perfect GPA or my promotion to lead barista while maintaining full-time studies. But I'd grown accustomed to being the family's background character. The following year disappeared into a whirlwind of wedding planning while I focused on my junior year studies. My parents poured themselves into creating the perfect celebration for their golden child. They secured a substantial home equity loan to fund it all: the lakefront venue, gourmet catering, premium open bar, live orchestra, nothing too extravagant for Ethan and Olivia. The wedding was predictably lavish, a showcase of excess and emotion, centered entirely on the golden couple. I stood in my self-funded bridesmaid gown, watching my parents radiate pride as they danced with the newlyweds. The cost would haunt their retirement accounts for years, but they seemed unconcerned. After Ethan and Olivia departed for Connecticut, I assessed my situation with the analytical eye I'd developed appraising antiques. My cramped bedroom at my parents' house, with its desk barely fitting between the bed and wall, had served as my study space throughout college. Then I remembered, the investment property where Ethan had lived during college was now vacant. Its location near campus was ideal, and its current market value made it an attractive rental opportunity from a purely professional standpoint. I approached my parents during their evening TV ritual. Since the Mitchell Heights apartment is empty now, I'd like to discuss moving in there, I said, using the property's formal name, as I'd learned to do in my real estate courses. Their exchanged glance spoke volumes about asset management. Of course you can move in, Mom replied, her tone shifting to businesslike, but you'll need to pay market rate rent. The inequity struck me like a lowball offer. Market rate? Ethan lived there rent-free for 4 years. Dad fidgeted with his retirement portfolio app. That was different. We have the wedding loan to service now. We need the rental income. My voice remained steady, though my hands clenched. I'm also your child. I've self-funded my education, managed my own transportation, never asked for. Mom raised her hand like a gavel dropping. She and Dad shared one of their silent negotiations, reminiscent of their discussions about Ethan's endless investment opportunities. We'll offer you a 50% reduction from market rate, Mom announced with finality. Like any savvy negotiator, I recognized when I'd reached the best possible terms. I accept those conditions. That weekend, I conducted my own property inspection of the apartment. Ethan's presence lingered everywhere: wall damage from his motivational posters, water damage on the vintage coffee table from ignored coasters, general wear and tear that would typically impact a property's valuation. To cover the rent, I increased my hours at the cafe, often closing the shop at midnight. My schedule became a careful balance of classes, work shifts, and study sessions, maximizing every hour like a property investment timeline. My senior year blurred past in a symphony of property law textbooks, espresso machines, and late-night real estate market analyses. Graduation day arrived with the same understated acknowledgement as a routine property closing. While my classmates' families hosted elaborate celebrations, my parents opted for a modest dinner at home. The guest list included only my grandparents, no extended family, no catering service like Ethan's graduation extravaganza. Around our dining table, I served the homemade lasagna I'd prepared. Grandma Eleanor reached across, her hand warm on mine. "Vanessa, darling, we couldn't be prouder," she said with genuine appreciation. "Graduating summa cum laude while managing your own finances, you've shown remarkable value." Before I could respond, Mom's phone chimed. Her face brightened at the notification. Speaking of success, she interjected, "Ethan just shared some exciting news. Their development company is expanding into 2 new markets." I watched my graduation dinner transform into another celebration of Ethan's business ventures. My grandparents exchanged knowing looks, Grandpa's hand on my shoulder conveying years of wisdom about true worth versus perceived value. My expertise in property valuation and financial analysis paid off immediately after graduation. I secured a position at Anderson and Mitchell Real Estate Consultants, one of Chicago's top firms. The starting salary exceeded my careful projections, and I felt a surge of pride in launching my career as a property appraiser. That satisfaction lasted precisely 72 hours, until Patricia's unannounced visit to the apartment. "Vanessa," she said, examining the property like a potential investment, "now that you're earning a professional salary, it's time to adjust your rent to full market rate." I stared at her, mentally recalculating. Our agreement was 50% of market value. "That was your student rate," she replied with a property manager's detachment. "Your current income supports full market rent." I could have pointed out that Ethan had lived here rent-free even after landing his first position, but experience had taught me that such comparisons were as worthless as an inflated appraisal. The property's prime location, within walking distance of my office, made it a valuable asset. I agreed to the increase, treating it as a purely business decision. Life settled into a structured routine, like a well-managed property portfolio. I immersed myself in property valuations and market analyses, building my reputation at the firm. Monthly, as predictable as mortgage payments, Mom would message, "Vanessa, dear. Rent's due Friday." We're depending on that income stream. 3 years of steadfast performance earned me a senior appraiser position with a substantial salary increase. I kept this development confidential, having learned that disclosing additional income only led to increased financial expectations from my parents. Through their periodic updates and social media posts, I learned that Ethan and Olivia had welcomed a son, Lucas. I maintained minimal contact, limiting our interaction to obligatory holiday acknowledgments and birthday messages. The arrangement suited me. Then came the call that would destabilize everything. "Vanessa," Mom's voice carried the tension of a failing investment. "There's a situation with your brother. The development company, it's gone under. Complete bankruptcy. Ethan's had a major falling out with Olivia's parents over his management decisions. They're not even speaking." I closed my eyes, anticipating the impending property redistribution. "They're moving back," she continued, "Ethan, Olivia, and Lucas." "I see," I responded neutrally. "I imagine they'll stay at your house." "Actually." Mom paused like a realtor preparing to reveal property damage. "The Mitchell Heights apartment has ample square footage. They'll be moving in there." My professional composure nearly cracked. "What?" "I've been living here, maintaining this property, for years. Don't overreact, Vanessa. Your brother's family needs support." They're financially distressed, so they'll need free accommodation. You'll continue with your rent payments, of course. This is completely inequitable, I protested, my appraiser's sense of fair market value offended. Perhaps I should seek alternative housing. Absolutely not, Mom's voice hardened like a non-negotiable contract. Your rent payments are essential now. Ethan's experiencing a temporary market downturn. Surely you wouldn't jeopardize his recovery? I ended the call without response, my mind already calculating exit strategies. Moving day exceeded my worst property damage projections. Ethan, Olivia, and their wailing son Lucas arrived with enough belongings to fill a small storage unit. Mom appeared to supervise the transition, a euphemism for systematically dismantling my living space. Vanessa, we need your bedroom cleared immediately, Mom ordered, surveying the space like a contractor. This will be Lucas's nursery. I stood in my doorway, mentally calculating the square footage I'd paid for over 4 years. And where exactly am I supposed to sleep? The living room sofa is perfectly adequate, she replied, already rearranging my furniture. Let me understand this, I said, employing my professional assessment tone. I'm paying full market rent, yet being relegated to common area sleeping arrangements? Mom's expression matched the hardness of her rental terms. Don't be difficult, Vanessa. Your brother has an infant. Proper nursery space is non-negotiable. I watched my carefully curated personal space transform into an upscale baby boutique, complete with premium nursery furnishings. My belongings were consolidated into a corner of what now served as my bedroom, office, and living space combined. The subsequent weeks revealed the true cost of cohabitation. Ethan spent his days wandering the apartment, oscillating between bitter criticisms of Olivia's parents' business acumen and grandiose reminiscences of his brief real estate development career. Olivia alternated between tearful phone calls with her friends and heated negotiations with Ethan over Lucas's care schedule. The baby's constant crying suggested an intuitive understanding of the property's declining value. I'd returned from complex property evaluations to find the apartment in a state that would fail any basic inspection: dishes breeding bacteria, toys creating liability hazards, laundry exceeding storage capacity. Initially, I attempted to ignore the deteriorating conditions, but the pest attraction and inability to maintain professional standards in my makeshift bedroom forced action. So I became the property manager, cleaning, cooking, maintaining. Yet every meal I prepared vanished without a trace, like equity in a failing market. After a particularly challenging day analyzing distressed properties, I attempted a professional intervention. Ethan, I began, maintaining my appraiser's neutrality. Anderson and Mitchell has several openings. I could facilitate an introduction to HR. The compensation package is competitive, including full benefits. Ethan glanced up from his phone, his expression suggesting I'd grossly undervalued his worth. Entry-level positions? That's beneath me. I'm an experienced developer, Vanessa. I require an executive role commensurate with my market position. You mean your experience in market collapse? The assessment escaped before I could apply my professional filter. His face flushed like an overvalued property listing. You know nothing about what happened. Olivia's parents deliberately undermined our development strategy. He retreated to his bedroom, my former primary residence, leaving me to calculate the diminishing returns on my living situation. 3 months into this forced property sharing arrangement, I conducted a thorough financial assessment at my kitchen table, now bearing the depreciation marks of baby food stains and countless coffee rings. The data was unambiguous. My monthly expenses had increased by 97% since Ethan's family took occupancy. This market analysis compelled me to initiate contact with my parents. I prepared my presentation with the same precision I applied to property valuations. The discussion proceeded exactly as market trends predicted. We need to address the current living arrangement, I began, using my professional tone. Ethan and Olivia aren't contributing to any household operating costs. They're consuming all provisions, utilizing all utilities without compensation. Vanessa, Mom interrupted sharply. How dare you be so mercenary? Your brother lost his entire investment portfolio. His in-laws sabotaged him. He has an infant dependent. Dad's voice echoed from the background like a passive investor. You should appreciate having the means to support family. That's precisely the issue, I persisted, maintaining my analytical approach. This isn't support, it's complete financial absorption. They contribute nothing to household overhead. Enough. Mom terminated the discussion. Your brother is experiencing temporary market volatility. This situation isn't permanent. Show some professional understanding. That evening, I began a systematic search of available properties, focusing on prime locations within walking distance of Anderson and Mitchell. A contingency strategy, I told myself. In case the market deteriorates further. Market conditions deteriorated precisely 14 days later. I was attempting to review property assessments from my makeshift sofa office, while Lucas's cries provided constant background noise and Ethan and Olivia engaged in their fourth dispute of the day. The doorbell preceded my parents' unannounced entry. Mom wore her investment announcement expression, the same one she displayed before revealing Ethan's numerous business ventures. Dad maintained the posture of a silent partner. Vanessa, we need to discuss rent adjustments, Mom stated. I minimized my work files. Current month's payment was processed on schedule. Yes, but effective next month, we're implementing a 100% increase. The property fell silent, even Lucas pausing his protests. I stared at Mom, running the numbers again. Double? I'm already paying current market value. Mom gestured at the space like a property developer. The occupancy has increased, creating accelerated depreciation, higher utility consumption. The rent should reflect these market conditions. Market conditions? I echoed, my professional demeanor cracking. How does doubling my rent while I'm restricted to common area accommodations represent fair market value? If anyone should incur increased costs, it should be Ethan. His occupancy. I'm not paying anything. Ethan interjected, displaying his characteristic financial planning. This is outrageous. I've lost my entire portfolio, and now you want rent contributions? Of course not, darling, Mom soothed before returning to her property manager stance. Vanessa, your income supports this increase. Your brother requires time for market recovery. I surveyed the stakeholders, Mom's managerial expectations, Dad's passive avoidance, Ethan's entitled resistance, Olivia's satisfied observation. 3 months of cumulative market pressure threatened to breach my professional composure, but I maintained control. I simply nodded. Accepted. Double rent commencing next month. Mom's expression reflected successful negotiation. She and Dad departed promptly, satisfied with their asset management strategy. They hadn't realized they'd just triggered my exit clause. Later that evening, while reviewing market reports on my improvised sofa office, I overheard Ethan and Olivia's kitchen conversation. Their attempted discretion was undermined by their evident satisfaction. Can you believe it? Olivia's voice carried her marketing background. Patricia just disclosed they're allocating 50% of Vanessa's rent payments to us monthly. Ethan's response exemplified his business acumen. Obviously. They recognize our temporary liquidity issues. Vanessa's income can sustain our expenses for now. It's an ideal arrangement, Olivia continued. Free accommodation plus discretionary funds. No need to inform your sister. I gripped my property report until the pages crinkled. This wasn't merely inequitable treatment, it was a coordinated financial scheme. My parents weren't simply enabling Ethan, they were using me as an unauthorized investment fund for his continued financial irresponsibility. I accessed my archived property listings. One property immediately stood out, a contemporary one-bedroom unit in a professionally managed building, offering superior proximity to Anderson and Mitchell. The asking rent matched my current pre-increase payment. I initiated contact immediately, maintaining low volume. Hello, I'm inquiring about the Cedar Street property. Yes, I'm available for immediate viewing. Excellent, I'll arrive in 15 minutes. The unit exceeded expectations, pristine condition, optimal noise control, and notably, free of failed entrepreneurs. I executed the lease agreement on site, transferring the security deposit from my contingency fund. Returning to the Mitchell Heights apartment, I waited for full occupant dormancy before efficiently packing essential assets into 2 travel cases. I abandoned the furniture, its liquidation value was negligible, and new acquisitions would be unburdened by depreciated emotional value. The following morning, I transported my cases toward the exit while Ethan performed his daily ritual of superficial job market analysis. Relocating? He inquired, maintaining minimal engagement. Temporary business travel, I replied with professional polish. Extended project at our Cincinnati office. He responded with characteristic disinterest. That evening, I took possession of my new property, consuming delivered sustenance while seated on the unfinished floor. The acoustic environment was exemplary, no infant distress, no domestic disputes, no emotional manipulation, just optimal market conditions. For 30 days, I conducted my life with optimal efficiency in my new property. I invested in quality furnishings, an ergonomic mattress, a dedicated seating arrangement that served one purpose, and kitchen equipment for single-occupant use. My refrigerator inventory remained stable until personal consumption. My sleep metrics showed consistent uninterrupted patterns, free from infant-related disturbances. Then, precisely on schedule, my mother's number appeared on my phone display. Vanessa. She demanded without professional courtesy. The rent payment is delinquent. Have you forgotten our agreement regarding the rate increase? I responded with an appraiser's laugh. I've become aware of your financial arrangement with Ethan and Olivia. Were you planning to disclose that 50% of my payments were being redirected to their discretionary spending? That's confidential family business. Your brother requires. No, Mom, I interrupted, maintaining my analytical tone. What Ethan requires is professional maturity and fiscal responsibility. I've secured alternative housing. The Mitchell Heights property is now your exclusive liability. You've what? Her voice hit a non-compliant frequency. This is unacceptable. That rental income is critical. Perhaps Ethan can demonstrate market recovery by assuming the financial obligations. I look forward to reviewing those performance metrics. Silence followed my market assessment. I could practically hear her recalculating as reality impacted. Their reliable revenue stream had evaporated, replaced by a chronically unemployed asset with no payment history. Vanessa, darling, Mom's tone shifted to her investment pitch voice, familiar from childhood capital requests. Let's explore alternative arrangements. The original rate structure could be reinstated. That represents fair market value, correct? I adjusted my position on my independently selected sofa, in my secured property where tenant rights were properly enforced. That option is no longer available in the market. But Vanessa, we're family. You can't simply. Family? I applied my professional analysis. Is that your classification for covert financial schemes benefiting Ethan? For displacing a paying tenant while maintaining their financial obligations? For treating one child as a revenue stream while the other receives unlimited capital investment? That's an unfair assessment. We've always. This discussion is terminated. I ended the call and implemented a comprehensive contact block. That market adjustment occurred 6 months ago. My grandparents provide situation updates, though I never solicit them. Their experience in valuation helps them understand my need for validation. Their reports indicate that Ethan, Olivia, and Lucas maintain occupancy without financial contribution. Howard and Patricia cover all operating expenses plus discretionary spending for the infant's requirements. Ethan remains unemployed, citing insufficient executive opportunities for developers with bankruptcy records. My current market position is optimal. I've secured another professional advancement, acquired personal transportation, and enrolled in an MBA program. My living space maintains consistent order, my provisions remain undisturbed until personal use, and I enjoy uncontested access to my bedroom. Recently, I encountered Olivia's cousin at the local market. She disclosed their impending second child. I offered professional congratulations, knowing my parents were likely already restructuring their finances to accommodate another nursery. But that's outside my portfolio now. For the first time, I'm prioritizing my own asset management, and the returns are exceeding all projections.